Hey everybody, it's Fan Ben again, and today we're going to be talking about how to get the most out of the French faction. So they were the fourth faction introduced, the first new faction from Crimson Coast, and as I say in this rankings thread of French gunships, I think they're pretty much the most playable faction in the game after only the Pirates, who are pretty much objectively the best faction. And the French, though, I think are a close second, at least sometimes in smaller games, not so much in the huge games as much, but I would say they're an extremely balanced faction. So to get the most out of the French, I would say to go with a balanced fleet of gunships and gold runners. They have a lot of great gunships and gold runners, as we'll see. You can see the rankings threads. I'm going to put links in the description below to both rankings threads. One thing about the French is that they have a lot of five masters that are all good, but not a ton of them stand out for being unique. So the Spanish have El Corazado at 21 points and the Morning Star at 9. And the English have the Aberdeen Baron as a gold runner, and they've got the Endeavour, one of the best gunships in the game. The French have a lot of in the middle gunships and five masters, but they're still really good. So the Soleil Royal, Superbe is fantastic. There's a ton of great ones here, and they do have some overpowered ships too, like the Bonaparte. And overall, the French have a lot of great gunships. They have some good smaller ones as well, like the Bonne Chance. They've got a flotilla. They've got a lot of great gunships here in the honorable mentions. It was really difficult to rank all their different ships. They've got two bombardiers. They have a switchblade. Almost all their five masters are good, if not great ships. So you can't really go wrong. There's just so many options. So you can't really go wrong with that. The gold runners are fantastic as well. Le Bon Marine is an amazing gold runner. The Beilul is fantastic. There's a ton of them here that are fantastic. There's a trio of super runners, I call it. Bon Marine, Le Pique, and Artesian. So those are three one masters from Crimson Coast and Revolution. They're all near perfect gold runners, and then there's a bunch of other ones as well. Le Triton, for example, I think is underrated. SL Speed 5 cargo can't be pinned. A great hybrid ship. The Vengeance is a great hybrid as well. So there's a ton of great options. So I would say go with a balanced approach and use a mix of gunships and gold runners pretty much no matter what fleet size you use. The English, for example, are better at going all gunships, for example. The Pirates might do really well with an all treasure fleet, but I would say the French, they excel at pretty much everything. I think they're kind of an underrated faction even. A lot of people don't seem to like them, especially nowadays for some reason. There's a lot of kind of French haters out there, I guess you could say, in the Pirates community, it seems like. Historically, I'm not the biggest fan of them because the Royal Navy is the English are my favorite faction, so, inevitable rivalries with the French, but I've really appreciated the French more the past 2-3 years, and they've become one of my favorite factions in general to play as. They're extremely playable, and I would highly recommend checking them out more if you haven't already. And I'm just going to breeze through some of the crew real quick. They have a ton of great named crew options. Not quite as good as the English or the Pirates, or arguably not good as good as the Spanish, maybe. That's a tough one. But they got an Admiral's Action crew from Barbary Coast. And you'll notice a lot of their named crew, one of their themes is boarding. So I don't see boarding as a super effective strategy, so I wouldn't always recommend it, even though it's a focus of the French. But that being said, if you do like boarding, you want to use it more, the French are a great faction to do it with. So already, I started this by alphabetical order, and you can already see Cartier as a boarding-based ability, so we're going to see a lot more of that in the next few minutes. They got a generic extra action crew with Stéphane Dupuis, and then they got these three. They got the Musketeers Marine crew. They did get 2 SAC captains, so Capitaine Arathiel and Arazur are both crew with the captain and the sacrifice ability. Arizor is 6 points, but they're both extremely good crew. This is an underrated aspect of the French, because most of the other factions besides the Pirates didn't get SAC captains, let alone multiple SAC captains. So this is actually a unique trait of the French. They have 2 SAC captains. You could use both in one game to devastating effect. So I'd recommend, if you're going to play the French, try to get both of these. Neither of them are all that rare. It says they're both common, so not too hard to acquire. The other version of Arazor is not very good at all, but boarding ability, Della Flotte. So this is basically Lord Micron, his ability plus Captain for 9 points. So that's a really flexible ability, especially in large games. There's another good crew there. Same action twice with +1 against the English. And I'm just going to zip through, trying to highlight how to get the best out of them. So Parley is actually an ability that a couple of their crew have. Pretty much a duplicate crew, but Duncan Rousseau is 1 point more than a different version of Lenoir. So Parley and Reroll for 5 points, which is a pretty cool combo for a gunship or maybe even a gold runner. So Duncan Rousseau, I think, is one of the more unique and interesting crew out there in the game. And then looking through, they got a 5-point Marine, so that's an option. They got a generic World Hater. More boarding abilities, of course, with La Plante. Another reroll. So they got a couple of Black Mark crew here. One that's reroll, and then one that's an L mover. So you can see they got a lot of different abilities. Jordan Dumas got a couple good versions, especially Barbary Coast Captain and reroll is a great combo for a named crew. And then some here that aren't quite as good. Lenoir is one of their most important crew because he's either a canceller for 5 points or for 4 if you're willing to take hostile England. So they got a regular canceller, and then this version of Lenoir is basically like Duncan Rousseau for 4 points instead of 5. They got multiple 0 LR rerollers. They got La Fontaine and Godiva. I don't know why they didn't need both, but you've got multiple options for that. Maurice Aristide is fantastic, +2 gold ability, just like Jenny Gallows for the Pirates. So fantastic. He's been used in some competitive fleets, and it's just a game-winning ability. So highly recommend getting a hold of him. And then there's the original Lenoir 5-point canceller. You can get it for 4, like I said, with hostile to England. And some more crew there. Not as good, but still all right. And more boarding. See another boarding. They've got at least, I think they have 3 S boarding captains for named crew, which is too many, but it's kind of amusing, I guess. So yeah, boarding is one of their focuses. And then Ari Ara gave them one of those Jonah or Robinson type crew, but that doesn't really get used that much, so not necessarily recommended. And then they did get a 0 LAR +5 like the other big 5 factions, so that's good. So the French overall, though, I would say concentrate on going for balance and trying to maybe cut some costs too, because they can do a lot with not a lot of points. So for example, the gunship I ranked #1 overall for their gunships is 13 points for 5 cargo, 5 good cannons, and cargo elimination. You could even run that as a hybrid, for example. And then they have, for example, Lebelul is 9 points for SL speed and 6 cargo, partly because of a negative ability, but that's still an amazing ship. You could hook up a flotilla to that and just have a really great combo, or just put a helmsman aboard. So the French, I would say, try to go for a balanced fleet strategy, use some of their gunships and gold runners. Take a look at the ranking strat to get some of their best ships. And if you do like the idea of boarding or boarding strategies in general, or if you've had good success with it, the French are one of the best factions to do that with. They've got a lot of boarding-based abilities on their ships and plenty of named crew as well to support that gimmick, or not really a gimmick, but to support the boarding strategy in general. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I do want to try to do this for all the factions eventually. And leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more Pirates content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon for more videos.